All right, you ready? Okay, so I'll start it off and kind of lead you in.
Sounds good.
Just a little further. Say something real quick.
Something real quick.
Perfect. All right, folks, we're here. We're sitting down here at an undisclosed location, running our first episode of Forgotten Freedoms. I'm sitting down here with Louis Imbriani, and we're going to discuss a little bit about Anchorage politics and the stuff he's doing, and we're going to talk a little bit about the assembly and a little bit about the state and so forth and so on. So this is Louis' first chance at being on a podcast, so hopefully everything goes well. This is the first real episode, so I want everybody to welcome him, and we're going to go from there. Real quick, I'm going to check to make sure that we are in fact live on Facebook, and I'll be right back to introducing. Double check real quick, make sure that we are in fact live, because it's happened before to where it wasn't. We are live. Look at that. I'm going to turn this thing down so that I can watch the comments. All right, Louis. First of all, welcome aboard, and welcome to Forgotten Freedoms. And glad that you're one of my first interviewees. And so tell us a little bit about yourself and why you're in Anchorage politics and what got you in it, and how you see the state of the city and with COVID and everything else involved in it, and what you're doing currently. You're with Alaskans for Constitutional Rights, right?
Yep, that's correct. Thanks for having me, Dustin. This is my first podcast, so and it's the first episode for your podcast. That's pretty big. Congratulations.
Thank you.
So yeah, my name's Louis Imbriani. I guess you could say I am in Anchorage politics now. October of 2020 was kind of when I really started getting heavily involved with the assembly. The lockdowns we were having, the emergency orders that we had, the emergency declaration, and I had absolutely no intent on getting into anything political in any way, shape, or form. I was getting hurt from their policies, and I thought that maybe if I go down there and tell my story, maybe they'll listen and something would change. And it took me a couple times of going down and telling my stories, telling stories of others and how it's affecting the lives and the people around me. And I came to realize that 9 out of the 11 people sitting in front of me did not care at all about what I had to say, and they were going to do whatever it was that they wanted to do what they felt was right. And I'll give them the benefit of that, is that they felt that what they were doing was right. I completely disagreed with it, and I did the only thing that I had the ability to do, which was show up, keep showing up, and keep the pressure on. Because if they knew what was going on, or if they were being informed that either they had changed their mind, or if what inevitably happened was we get into a legal battle, that they wouldn't have a leg to stand on.
Right. Well, I got to tell you something real quick. I'm going to not stop you, but one thing I've noticed with you throughout the time, we both spent about the same amount of time down at the assembly, and we became pretty good friends and stuff through that. One thing that I've noticed, and this is something that I think a lot of the cities noticed, that you have become a pretty good steward and going down and fighting for the people's rights here in town. And listening to you talk and do your testimony and stuff like that, you've become a very well-rounded and very well-spoken individual going down there. So we thank you for that.
Well, thanks for that, Dustin. That's it's great to hear, and I hope that is true for others as well. Yeah, I don't have a lot of experience speaking or public speaking. I don't do a lot of it with my work. I never really did a lot of it, so it was really hard for me. And that's a very intimidating setting.
That it is.
So I'm glad that I've learned, and I know that I have, and I guess I should say thank you for the opportunity to allow me to speak for more than 3 minutes.
Yeah, no. That's kind of the bad thing is trying to get, going down to the assembly and speaking for 3 minutes, and you're trying to condense everything that you want to say into those 3 minutes, and that right there alone is intimidating.
Yeah,
and
that's a very short period of time.
I put on a class last year and had I think we had 18 or 20 people show up that had never spoken in front of the assembly. And the following week, 13 of those 18 or 20 people spoke for the first time. And, the more we do it, the more used to it we get. We realize that those people down there at the assembly, they put their pants on just like we do.
Yep.
They're no different than you and I. And it's almost like you can have a conversation. I personally go down, and whenever I speak, I'm not really so much speaking to them as I am speaking to the general public, because there is a camera there that does a live stream for the general public so they can watch if they can't be there. And, lately it's been, I'd say probably about since the original mask mandate was instituted, it's been pretty much primarily, I would say, either libertarian-minded people or conservative people that have filled the auditorium.
Yeah, I would agree with that as well. And like you said, 3 minutes is a very short amount of time to get a lot of information out. And for me, when I go down there, my sole purpose is to put something on the record.
Right.
Is so they can't come back and say, well, we didn't know. You did. I said it. Or maybe I didn't say it or somebody else said it, and I can point it out.
Right.
And that's just for in case we go or we get into a large legal battle, which so far we haven't.
Right.
But who knows? It could happen. And we were very prepared to do that with the emergency declaration the last time around. And luckily that pressure paid off and it was dropped.
Well, tell us a little bit about the Alaskans for Constitutional Rights. Tell us a little bit about what you're doing with them and how you got involved with them.
Yeah, so Alaskans for Constitutional Rights was started in, let's say, June of 2020 by Chandra Chaffroy out of Homer. Mm-hmm. She started networking with people all over the state, and then there was a big community meeting at Wellspring Church. Sorry, but I know that shouldn't have... It was on the down low, but there were hundreds of people there, tons of different groups, and I met a woman named Lacey Matzella and networked with her and started talking about Alaskans for Constitutional Rights, and I wanted to get involved because it was something that I felt strongly about that could benefit the people of Anchorage and Alaska.
Right.
It was just a way to bring the state together and for me to learn and for others to learn about what freedoms we actually have, because It's amazing what we have and what we allow people to tread on, those freedoms that we don't even know we have.
Well, and the cool thing about going down and going to the assembly and doing the stuff that we've been doing is you get kind of a sense of community.
Yes, very much so.
If it wouldn't be for all the crap that we're dealing with, me and you might not have met.
Yeah.
I know Lacey too, and she's just a fabulous person in general, and she does everything that she can possibly do to fight for our rights, and she's got a family and everything, and it's not easy for her to be able to get out and do that stuff. And like many of us, we got other things we would rather be doing.
Yeah.
But we wouldn't be able to do some of those things if we weren't down there fighting for the rights that what we have left, that they're willing to just take away and they take for granted. So I thank you for being able to go down there and do what you're doing. And now I understand that you're also a hockey ref, right?
Yep, I referee a lot of ice hockey here around the state.
It was pretty recent that you actually got your hockey teams to show up at the assembly too.
Yeah, we showed up in force in the fall of 2020. And the big reason that we had so much support then was the municipality, they don't have these formal written contracts, but we have agreements with them that we need these facilities at certain times to start the hockey season. And they were not moving people out of Ben Boki or Dempsey Anderson when they were using them as non-congregate housing for people experiencing homelessness.
Right.
So I have the right vernacular there.
You gotta be politically correct.
Exactly. But the big issue was it wasn't that they were using them to house the homeless and we wanted them. It was the fact that they were sitting empty. And we wanted to use them for their intended purpose. And we understood that we were in the middle of an emergency, in the middle of a pandemic, but what we were also realizing was the impact that it was having on the kids.
Right.
How the kids wanted to get back on the ice, how they just went through an entire spring semester with little to no contact with their peers.
Or activity.
Exactly, or physical activity. And I saw when we got back on the ice just how dramatic that was. The kids who were able to leave state or leave the municipality fared far better than the kids who were stuck here in Anchorage.
Right.
Almost every single team that won state that went to nationals that year spent most of their weeks or weekends traveling to the valley to play.
Yeah, honing their skills.
Exactly.
I mean, any being in bowling and stuff and doing the things that I do, I chased a tour for a year or two, and I know that as soon as you start relaxing and you're not on the top of your game, you're going to be at the bottom of the pile.
Yeah.
So, I completely see that. And we did have a few teams that did well in nationals, right?
Oh yeah, we had two teams that did incredibly well. And those were the two teams that every weekend I was going out to the valley to referee these games. They were playing multiple games, having multiple practices in the setting that was most conducive to learning those skills, which is in an indoor ice arena with coaches. And that was not being allowed in the municipality. And
what's crazy was the numbers and stuff in the valley didn't show the same numbers that we showed out here. And I mean, it was very comparable, I would say, actually.
It was almost half.
Yeah.
I mean,
as somebody that's been around kids, and I've actually had to go down to the assembly and the school board to fight for my bowling teams to be able to go to nationals. Speaking of which, one of my girls actually took second in the nation.
Wow, that's awesome.
Because they were allowed to practice and stuff like they wanted, like they should have been able to. But we had to fight also because the assembly and the school board didn't want them to be able to fly down to another state. And of course, that state's a red state, and they don't do all the testing crap that they do up here. So it was a battle just to get the school board to allow them to go. But eventually, enough pressure was put on them. I had the kids go down and testify, and that was enough pressure to where they agreed to let them go. And luckily, some of our kids did very well in nationals. So much like the hockey teams. So obviously the assembly, and when I say the assembly, I speak of it as a whole, but it's mainly 9 people.
Yep.
That's causing a lot of the strife and the issues here. We also have some media here in Anchorage that don't give us much help.
No, I struggle with the media aspect of the whole situation because I'm the type of person that if I hear something on the news, I look at it and I see, okay, is there a study? Where did this information come from? And then can I go back and look for more information?
Right.
And that's not what a lot of people do.
Obviously.
Yeah. But yeah, we do not have a lot of help, not even if you want to polarize it as right and left, but just as people who want real information. Mm-hmm. I mean, we have a lot of these companies or even some people that work independently that are really only looking at how many clicks can I get?
Yep.
How many views can I get? Does this headline have the intended purpose of what I want to say.
Mm-hmm.
And there are a lot of agencies that just regurgitate the information rather than actually doing their own.
Yeah.
I posted something on Facebook just yesterday where it was like, cases for COVID-19 are skyrocketing in youth. And then if you actually read the article, it went from 2.5 per 100,000 to 4 per 100,000. And a doctor even said that these kids aren't coming in for COVID. They're just happening to test positive when they're here.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't even say anything about symptoms or if they're getting COVID treatments. It was just like, that was the whole idea, was the shock and awe that, oh my gosh, kids are getting sick and going to the hospital. And they are, and it's unfortunate. And I hope that it doesn't happen to any kid, but I mean, that is not representative of what is actually going on, and it's not giving the whole picture, and I think it's misleading when you don't give the whole picture.
Well, and I think we've actually turned a corner with COVID a little bit. The CDC has basically, they're trying to discontinue the PCR tests. They realize that they can't distinguish between COVID and the flu. I'll give you an example of that. So one of the people that I work with went out for 2 months, very sick, older guy, and he was in the hospital for almost half of that, for about a month, and never did get put on a ventilator, but he was on oxygen most of the time. Well, him and I got sick at the same time, and we worked close together. He tested positive for COVID, I tested negative, but I'd had COVID before. This was his first time. So I'm almost positive I had it again. Even though I tested negative, it was the same symptoms he had. The only thing, I just wasn't as bad. And I went through it for about a week, and I got over it. And he struggled with it because he's older. He's got other health issues, and he came out of it. We're now in Omicron, right? That's the new variant. I've had probably 6 or 7 people that have gotten sick at work, different times, not all at once. And they've all had very, very minor symptoms this time. So I think that we're turning a corner. We're not hearing near the severity of it. So I think that they just need to let us go back to doing what we're doing.
Well, I don't know about you, but I haven't stopped the entire pandemic. I mean, the only thing that stopped me has been the rules here in Anchorage, but then I just spend all my time out in Matsu.
Well, with doing what I do and being in the public eye, we were shut down for 8 months.
Yeah.
The first part of COVID.
And that's rough.
And that sucked. It did let me do some things at my house that I would not normally been able to do. First time in 32 years that I was ever on unemployment. Not something that I enjoyed at all. I thought that was the most uncomfortable position I could ever be put in. And, and they locked us out of the assembly. That was another thing that was being fought, trying to get us back in there. And then our community councils went to Zoom, and we couldn't see our community. And there's so many different things that was involved in this COVID disaster. And I think that the best thing that most people can do is probably just realize that we're stuck with COVID. It's not going nowhere.
No, it's not going anywhere.
It's going to be like the flu. It's going to be a seasonal problem. And I think that once people realize that, then people will start to see just how much of our freedoms and our rights were taken away during this time. It shows how dangerous this really is. So, and how dangerous our politicians and our representatives can be.
Yeah.
So, you got anything new that you're working on?
Yes. So I've been working on trying to not only grow Alaskans for Constitutional Rights, but also kind of take us outside of just Alaska. There are a lot of different groups that are out there that are anti-mandate. And so I've been talking with some of them and trying to get involved with them and what they're doing. There's going to be a march on DC January 23rd. So that's a big thing that's kind of on my radar. Looking into doing something here in Alaska, probably Martin Luther King Day, and then also again on the 23rd, just to try to get people back into it. It's been a long, cold winter, really cold. and to get people out marching around, showing that we're not going away.
I tell you, a good day to do something like that on, and it's happened across the country, and I've been involved in some rallies and whatnot on this day, but April 15th, tax day.
Oh, yeah.
That's a great day to go out and tell Uncle Sam to kiss off or whatever
Yeah.
you want to do, you know. It's a pretty big day, and everybody knows that date. It's almost like a holiday, right?
Yeah.
I mean, everybody knows when they got to have their taxes turned in. So, you know, April 15th would be a good time. Now, weather permitting, obviously we're in Alaska, so April 15th may not be the warmest, but something like that would be a good thing to do. You know, every day, I mean, literally every day, I've got somebody that is messaging me or asking me questions about what's going on down at the assembly. If you could compel somebody to go down there and testify, give them some reasons why they should go down there, stick their neck out for the communities, why it's a good idea to go down there and get face to face with our assembly members.
Well, it's a good idea to get face to face, and you're not sticking your neck out. I have had so many people who have been like, well, I can't for work. And I go, why the hell not?
Yeah.
You're telling your story. I mean, what better way to speak to the people that represent you than to do it to all of them? I mean, if you were that worried that telling your personal story will get you harmed at work, you got to realize and think, like, what are you actually doing for work, and what is that bringing home for you?
I look at it like this: if they're worried about something that's going to happen to them at home, they're already too late. They need to be down there now. I mean,
I agree.
you know, I mean, if they've sat on their couch this long and it's gotten to that point, they need to be down there.
Yeah.
You know, I go down there because of several different reasons. I own a home, tax reasons. Obviously, taxes are going up.
Yep.
I've been in my house since 2019, and my taxes have already gone up twice. So I'm already paying $200 more a month for my mortgage than what I did when I bought the house. So there's all kinds of different reasons, but I think one of the biggest things that we see is, and we all understand this. We go down there, and a lot of the stuff that they talk about, there's a lot of either corruption, a lot of underhanded things that happen that didn't happen with other administrations, right? A lot of this stuff is popping up now because we have a conservative mayor. We didn't have that with Berkowitz and with Quinn Davidson. Now we have Mayor Bronson in there, and all of a sudden now everything becomes well, we got to do this right now.
Yeah.
You know, them taking their own powers that they shouldn't be taking. There's a lot of stuff like that the people need to go down and fight against. And if we're not fighting, then they're just going to continue to keep doing it.
That's 100% correct. And if you feel like my voice can't make a difference, you're wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Because you got people like me and Dustin who are listening. And when we hear you speak, now we go, okay, I know who else I can talk to. We know you're on our team, so to speak. We know that there are others in the community that are willing to stand, maybe if not right next to us, you'll stand behind us and help us up that hill.
Right.
We don't necessarily need people who are going to grab the bull by the horns, but we need somebody who, when we grab the bull by the horns, they're going to be there supporting and cheering us on. And when you go to the assembly and you talk, then we know who you are.
Right. And, you know, again, this kind of comes back to, you know, having community behind you. I had a woman that messaged me last night, like at 12:30, and she's seriously worried about her kids getting taken away if she goes down there and talks to them. And the one thing that I would like to say to the people that go down there or want to go down there is you're going to get a sense of community, and you're also going to get a support system. Yeah, it may not be like, you know, buddy kind of thing, but if you're going to meet people that you can reach out to if something happens. And I mean, we have different groups that we communicate in and different ways to communicate. And I guarantee you that someone in that group will come and help if you ask them to.
Yep.
That's what I kind of like about the conservative side of things is we tend to be the helpers of the group, of the groups or the parties, whatever you want to say. I spent 10 years in Northern California, and I did all kinds of different things in the groups I was in, community relations, and then we also did fire victims. We went and gathered up all kinds of things for that. So, and I guarantee you that most of the people that go down there and testify would be willing to help if something bad happened.
Yeah.
So you're going to gain a sense of community. You're going to gain a support system. It's I've gone down to the school board. I started going down to the assembly mainly because they were discussing red flag laws. That's a no-no. That's you can't cross that line. If you cross that line, then you got a problem.
And we'll end up like Australia
or California,
yeah,
or any other state here in the country. So I started going down there doing that, and I was actually my group was the first ones locked out of the assembly whenever they started locking it down. And I don't know how many times I've been on the news for that, not specifically for that, but I've become someone that either gets pushed into doing the interview with the other groups that I've been involved in, or something else. I've gotten to be a pretty recognizable face. Not quite as much as a few others here in town, but I'm still someone that I think is pretty level. I do some crazy things once in a while, but I got to keep them off kilter too.
Yeah, got to throw a curveball.
I want them thinking I'm a little crazy. They don't know how to handle someone that's a little crazy, but so I'm going to be doing these kind of things, and hopefully you can come back and update us a little bit as things go on. You got anything else you want to add before we close out for the day?
I do want to touch a little bit on where you talk about like the conservative aspect. Mm-hmm. I have been labeled as a conservative or a hardcore Republican or a right-wing activist, as some people, or a hockey douche, as I have been termed, because apparently I don't like fat people. Yeah, like weird things, distorting. It's crazy to me because I don't think of myself as right-wing. I don't think of myself as Republican. I just find myself or feel that I am somebody who is pro-freedom.
Right.
Pro-personal autonomy, personal choice, because the individual liberties is what this country was founded on. And if we don't have that, then where are we?
Well, I'm glad you brought this up. And I've always attributed the other side, or the liberal side of things. And I hate to put people in sides. I hate that whole notion. But, if you look at the party, the Democratic Party or the Liberal Party, whatever you want to say, they're like a beehive, right? They have all these people, and they have worker drones, and then they have their queen bee, and you could almost say like Quinn Davison was a queen bee when she was in office, whatever. Well, they're like a beehive, and they send out. They work very well together. I'll say that. Okay. Regular people, or conservatives, or libertarians, whatever you want to say, we just want to be left alone. We don't want to have to go do that kind of stuff, right? We don't want to answer to someone else. We don't want to have someone say, you got to do this, and then you expect us to go out and do that. We are more about personal freedom, personal liberty, and thinking for ourselves. And that's what the Revolutionary War won us, honestly. In 1776, whenever the young men and women, or mainly at the time men, but the men and women went out there and fought, because the women supported the men. They fought for the freedoms that we have now.
Yeah.
And, if Washington and all those people that were alive back then were to know what's going on right now, they'd be rolling in their graves.
Yeah, I completely agree with you on that. And that's what got me started, was they were saying, no, you can't go out and go to the gym. You can't go out and go referee a hockey game because we don't want you to get sick. It's like, okay, well, what happens if I get sick? You're not going to pay my medical bill.
Right.
I have to pay it. So why don't you let me do what I want to do? Let me provide for my family in a way that I want to do it, and leave me alone. And then they go, no, you might get somebody else sick. And I go, hey, the only person that I can control is me.
Yep.
I can't control another person.
Well, and at the same time, they're yelling that and screaming that, but you go to a grocery store not wearing a mask, and what's the first thing that happens? Someone comes running up to you, gets in your space,
Yeah.
and starts screaming at you. And half the time, for them to scream at you, they have to drop their mask so that you can understand them. So the hypocrisy that comes with that notion or that mentality is absolutely ridiculous. It's borderline insanity. I mean, some of these people, honestly, should probably be in a hospital somewhere and getting some depressing drugs or something.
Yeah, I mean, and that can go as far as our assembly with some of them are so risk adverse that if, let's say we built a playground out of wood, the possibility of getting a splinter. No, we cannot use wood now.
I know.
We have to use steel because of the possibility of a splinter. Like, that is the risk aversion that they're taking. And it's like, you need to let people live their lives and choose what risks they want to take, especially when it's been proven that it's not somebody else's fault, or it can't be proven that it's somebody else's fault for getting someone else sick.
So are you originally from Anchorage?
Yeah, I'm originally from Anchorage. Short backstory, Dad was in the military. I was 6 months old when we moved up here, but then we stayed. So
Okay.
I went to school here, went to high school here, left to play hockey, and then came right back. And now I live here, and I'm a homeowner here, in Eagle River, but still municipality.
So, our backgrounds are different.
Yep.
I mean, obviously we're both into sports and stuff like that, but I grew up in a small town with 4,000 people. Everybody knew your business, and everybody knew, what you were doing from day to day most of the time. And I was fortunate enough to be able to go hunting and fishing with my history teachers. And through that, I was able to learn a lot of history about the Revolutionary War, a lot of stuff about the Civil War. My baseball coach was actually our U.S. government teacher, a history teacher. And I had two teachers that I remember. One of them, his name was Mr. Rovat, and the other one was Mr. Goodrich. And I learned a lot of things from them. But one of the biggest takeaways that I got from them was that typically people like the 9 on the assembly, what they do is they lead through emotion, and they lead through, or they try and tweak things until they get it just where they want it. Well, typically people that are freedom loving and you could say conservative, I guess, whatever you want to say, but we tend to don't fix something that's not broken.
Yeah.
And even if it's not broken, the other side wants to just keep tweaking it to make it that much better until they break it. And that's what they're doing right now here in Anchorage. They keep tweaking stuff that's working, that has worked in the past, and they're trying to make it better, but in the process, they're ruining everything.
Or they have these emotional knee-jerk reactions that cause a problem.
Yep.
Like, if you're, like, I served a lot of tables, so if you got a little wobble, what do? You try to correct the wobble just a little bit. You don't try to catch it with both hands, because the chances of you knocking your own tray out of your hand is so much more likely than if you just try to slow down, focus on the issue, and then move forward.
That's a pretty good analogy, actually.
Yeah, that's how I look at it, because, I mean, I don't want to get too deep into it, but like the homeless issue that we're running into with the Sullivan Arena, opening the Sullivan Arena to relieve was a mass knee-jerk reaction.
Right.
We opened it right away when we didn't know what we needed.
Right.
I mean, if we needed it in the winter time, then absolutely open it. But it was like, what are we going to do? We're going to open it right now.
Well, there's all kinds of knee-jerk reactions like that. It's like when having, so when COVID first hit and everyone started panicking, and
the toilet paper.
Panicking, well, no, that was for sure. Panicking is the perfect term for this, because not only did the citizens panic and go out and buy gobs of toilet paper for ungodly known reason. I don't know what toilet paper had to do with it.
Can I stop you and ask you a question?
Yeah.
You had COVID.
Yep.
How much toilet paper did you need?
No more than normal. In fact, a lot of people said, well, I think they were worried about having diarrhea or something. I never had it. I was functionally fine.
Okay. I was just curious, because I haven't, in the past 2 years, I haven't gotten more than a sinus infection, but
Yeah.
I get those all the time.
Yeah. And, I have tissues for that.
Yeah.
I don't need to use rolls of toilet paper for my nose. But there's all kinds of things you can see where they screwed up, and this is on the other administration too, by the way. So when COVID got here, it was Berkowitz, and then it became Quinn Davidson. And when Berkowitz was in there, they had set up the college is it UAA or the they had another unit that they could use. It was at the
Another homeless?
no. This was for treatment.
Oh, okay.
Because they were worried about the hospitals getting overwhelmed.
Yeah, at the Alaska Airlines Center.
There you go, Alaska Airlines. Thank you. They had that all set up. They had a bunch of things plumbed in and everything for oxygen, stuff like that. They never used it.
Yeah.
And then they shut it down. They ended up using it for whatever it was intended for. And then all of a sudden we had another outbreak, right, this last year. And they never reopened that. But yet they started screaming, hey, we're getting short on the hospitals. Meanwhile, that whole place is sitting empty and prepared for it. And instead of them using it, they fired a bunch of nurses.
Yeah, but then it's a staffing. But before it was a staffing issue. We don't have enough people to staff these beds. Well, here's my big question. The question that has been burning in the back of my brain, and I'm sure a lot of others, is why did we do a run on protective equipment?
Yep.
Masks, gloves, gowns. They were talking about these nurses and doctors, especially in the lower 48, dressing up in garbage bags at the beginning of the pandemic. And I get it. I understand it's scary. But what was being done to make sure people never went to the hospital in the first place?
Right.
I mean,
no preventative.
It's not even just preventative. It's like when you get sick, do you get sick and rush to the ER? Or do you start feeling under the weather, then you get worse, and then you go to the hospital?
Right.
I mean, I don't know the exact statistics. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a nurse. I wasn't there, but I could imagine that there were a lot of people that were rushing there as soon as they tested positive.
Yeah.
Not even symptomatic or mildly symptomatic, and they're rushing to the hospital.
You know, when we got sick, so me and my wife both had it. I obviously wasn't near as bad as my wife. My wife spent a week in the hospital. She got real close to being put on a ventilator. I got a call, and they asked me permission if she got that bad to put her on there. And what I told them, and this is something I had to think about, but I told them that as long as she's conscious, I don't want you putting her on a ventilator. And I think that honestly saved her life. And so she was in the hospital for 6 days and never lost consciousness. She never went to sleep, really. And that probably saved her life. We obviously have a couple activists here in town that passed away from COVID. It's a serious illness. It can be. But at the same time, there's a lot of things that you can do to help prevent it. Taking vitamins is one. Eating healthy and doing the things that you would do to stay healthy to begin with. That's the big thing right there.
Well, number one, and this is what got me coined as the hockey douche in some circles, was almost 80% of people who were hospitalized with COVID were not just obese, but they were morbidly obese. Their body mass index was over 28.
Right.
I mean, and unfortunately, over 40% of Americans fall into that category, but we knew that within months of the pandemic happening.
Right.
And you'd think that we would talk about that. The need to exercise, the need to eat healthy, the need to just get yourself into a better position. I mean, so think about it this way. You get COVID. You're either going to run, I'll put it into the running perspective because the assembly like to use that with the marathon, and we don't want to stop at mile 17 of the marathon. Yeah, I thought we were running a 5K. But that's the thing, is you don't know. You don't know if you're going to have to get up and you're going to have to run that 5K and your body's going to beat it, or if you're going to have to run that marathon.
Right.
So are you going to want to train and get your body into the best shape you can because you don't know what's going to happen, or are you just going to keep doing what you're doing? And that information wasn't put out.
Right.
I had spoken at health policy meetings before. It's like, why aren't we talking about getting people healthy? Why aren't we putting people in touch with primary care providers or helping them find them so they're not having to go to the ER for a pregnancy test or because they're feeling a little bit under the weather? It's like, get people hooked up with other resources and give them the information that they need.
You know, it wasn't that long ago that we had a whole bunch of doctors in the assembly that showed up, seemingly, you know, like someone told them they had to be there. That's kind of my feeling on the whole thing. We had people that came in that weren't doctors that put on lab coats when they got there. So it kind of became a little bit of political theater, but I found it interesting that the whole time that they testified, and it was administrator and one of the doctors that testified, that while they were there, not one time did they mention anything that people could do to help themselves.
No, the only thing that they said was get vaccinated.
Yeah.
And that's a whole different topic, and I won't go into that because, one, I'm not a doctor, and
Right.
I won't recommend or not recommend that to somebody.
It's not our place to do so anyway.
It's not. It's not our place to even ask if somebody is or isn't, at least in my opinion.
Yep. And you know, and we shouldn't discriminate against that, because I have people that I work with that are vaccinated. My entire ownership of the people that I work with, the people who own my building, actually, I'll be 100% honest with you, I'm the only management person in my place that's not. And guess what? I've actually been healthier than them.
Yeah.
For the whole time. And you know, I think it's somebody's personal choice. That's the whole argument.
It is, and that goes back to what we're saying, assessing your own risk and what risks do you want to take.
Right.
Like, for me, I am not going to risk something that we have no longitudinal studies on.
Right.
We don't. The longest study that we have on these new mRNA vaccines is what? A year and a half, maybe
Max.
18 months max. I mean, how many drugs get pulled in year 5, 6, 7,
Well,
20?
Now you take into effect that not only are you getting something that you have never had, but they've got people mixing the vaccines too.
And we don't know how that's going to react either.
Zero idea on that.
No
one.
idea. And
So-
that is a risk that I am not willing to take. I am willing to put myself at risk and possibly catch this disease that has a 99.5% survival rate.
Yeah.
And I will take my chances.
Yep.
I will do the very best that I can to keep from getting it, to keep from exposing others to it if I were to get it, and I'll do what I can to keep myself healthy.
Well, you know, as somebody, I had enlisted in the military, and one of the things that you learn in boot camp is they prepare you to be able to die. You don't want to, obviously, but you know, I'm prepared to meet my maker if I have to. And if some people think that makes me crazy, that's fine. But I will, you know, I want my choice. I want that choice. I don't want someone else to make that for me.
And I want that same choice too, and I want everybody to be able to have that choice and to have the choice of what they want to do with their lives. And we're already running into that situation here in Anchorage where there are companies who are firing people because they're not vaccinated.
Yep.
And that's absolutely ridiculous that they want something that will affect this person's entire life, not just when they're at work, but all the time and into the future. I mean, you work for a company, well, not so much anymore, but most people who have a career with a company work with that company for 20 or 25 years. If the average age of a person is 72, because that's the life expectancy for the United States, I mean, that's 20 years is less than half your life. So in order to get a vaccine to get through less than half your life.
Yeah, it's pretty ridiculous where the country used to be and where it's come.
Yeah.
It hasn't gotten better, it's gotten way worse.
I would agree, and I would say that it's gotten worse just in the last 10 years.
Yeah. I agree. Well, and the thing is, at least last, I would say 5 years, the polarization of the country has gotten completely out of hand.
It's like you said, you don't want to put people into the box, but you kind of lump them, and that's what it's being like. It's like either you're pro-vaccine or you're anti-vaccine. And I'm the type of person I don't care if you got the vaccine or not.
Right.
I'm so in the middle on this issue and then getting pushed one way or another because of my thoughts. like, oh, I don't want to get the vaccine, so now I'm an anti-vaxxer. But
Well, the hardest thing, and this is something I want to tell the viewers that watch this, and this podcast, when I get this thing up and running and getting it where I need it to be, I want people's voices from all over. I don't want just one side. I hate the notion of having a one-sided conversation, because we end up putting ourselves in an echo chamber, and then we're only talking to people that are going to say stuff we want to hear, and that doesn't do us any good. We don't learn from that, because at the end of the day, you may learn something from someone that's got a differing opinion than you. And I find that every day, because, the people that I work with, and we find different ways to do things that may be better or worse than what we're doing normally. So, Louis, I appreciate you coming on. I think is there anything else you want to add?
no, I mean,
How'd you think it go? How'd you think it went?
it was good.
You enjoy it?
Yeah, nice to have a conversation, and like I said, be able to talk about more than just one topic for 3 minutes.
Right. Yeah, we could probably go on and on forever, but these kinds of conversations need to start happening in Anchorage a lot more, and they need to happen nationwide a lot more. And it's something that's what makes us human. People that are, I would say, seemingly loners, and with the masks and everything else lately, that's kind of what people have become.
Yeah.
They've lost that interaction with people.
And it almost seems like just having the mask on now allows people to kind of disregard others.
Yes.
Like, I know that, so I grew up here. You walk through the store, people, hi, make eye contact, even if it's just in passing, and now it's like, eyes down, eyes away. Don't even, especially if that person's wearing a mask and you're not wearing a mask, you might get that.
Well, what's funny was when me and Angela first moved back up here, I had been here. I was here for a few years, and then we left. I came back up. I talked her into coming back up, and she made a statement one time. This is the first year we were back. It was before COVID, before all the assembly stuff and everything else, before I ever even wanted to get involved in it. I'd left California to get out of politics.
And here you are.
Yeah, right back in it again. But she made this statement one day, and I remember, and I was actually proud that we moved up here because of this statement. She's like, man, everybody here is so nice. Boy, has that changed in the last year and a half.
Yeah, in the last year and a half, I've had more nasty interactions with people in public than I had working as a corrections officer in the jail.
Mm-hmm. I hear you there. And what's crazy is it's gotten to the point now where it's becoming more common, and it's going to end up being a daily thing.
Yeah.
It used to be you might once a month might have an interaction where somebody didn't care for you or whatever. Now it's almost like anytime you go outside, you get someone that's giving you the evil eye, or they're saying something to you that they're trying to. I don't know, man. It's just weird. I've had people come up to me. I'm a bigger guy. You're a bigger guy. You have people come up to you, and then they kind of size you up, and then they realize that, well, I probably shouldn't open my mouth like that. And I've got no problem explaining my situation or my opinion to somebody, but people that they don't know how to deal with that. It ends up being can end up being a physical confrontation.
Yeah. And I tell you what, I've learned a lot about myself in this whole situation as well, because I'm a hockey player. I don't do passive aggressive. Right. I don't do it. Like, if somebody wants to be passive aggressive, I would turn it into an aggressive situation. And this year, or the last 2 years, I've really learned to kind of like let it go, or to try to say something verbally and try to de-escalate the situation rather than my thought used to be like, what would happen if I said this? I'm going to say it and let's find out.
Right.
And now it's really more of like, no, I want to de-escalate the situation and really just kind of fly under the radar and live my life how I want to live it, or stay away from people.
I grew up in the opinion that I would rather see people smile or laugh than upset them.
Yep.
And, if I have to go above my means to do that, I will do it. But if somebody comes at me sideways and over something stupid as a mask, a piece of cloth or whatever, then, they've got more problems than I do.
Yep.
And I kind of look at things like that, and for the most part, I blow it off. Now, if somebody comes out and you see this kind of stuff on Twitter all the time. Again, this is all the echo chamber kind of stuff. You see somebody that, as an example, we had somebody that was at one of the testimonies that got outed on Twitter. Not outed, I can't say that, but basically canceled. They went after his business and all kinds of stuff. I'm not going to say his name on here, but he knows who he is, and we had several conversations, and he called law enforcement trying to get it to stop, and that kind of stuff is it's insane. For you to get mad at somebody over something that they did or a statement that they did, and then want to completely ruin their business, you're 10 times worse than that person that you thought did something wrong.
Yeah, like for me personally, I believe that I have the choice to go into a business or not go into the business. Yes. There are businesses that I will not go to because of the way they've either treated me or the way I see them treat their employees. I won't say the name of the company, but there's a company that serves food that they require their unvaccinated staff to wear a mask, and they require their vaccinated staff to wear a pin. I will not go to that establishment because of that.
Yep.
They're treating people differently based on their medical status.
There's I don't know if I should say this or not. I probably shouldn't. I'll tell you after this is over done with. But there's all kinds of even government and city agencies that are doing that.
Oh yeah, I know of quite a few companies, local companies, that if you're not vaccinated, you have to work from home.
Yeah.
You can't go into the office. You can't get that social interaction because they're so terrified of you, the unvaccinated, spreading this virus.
And the vaccinated seem to be getting as sick or sicker.
Well, it's not about the vaccinated or the unvaccinated getting sicker or spreading. Is that we do not have enough information to make that accurate assumption.
Right.
I mean,
I agree.
We compare it in our minds to what we saw with polio and what we saw with smallpox, is that the vaccination had a huge social impact, but it also had a huge social cost.
Yes, it did.
And that does not get spoken about. It doesn't get talked about. The people that had adverse reactions, the people that died, the problems with the vaccine. And I'm not going to say that the vaccine didn't help, because it absolutely did. I mean, polio, smallpox are horrible, horrible, horrible diseases. And the amount of damage that could have been done or was done by those viruses far outweighed the benefit of the vaccine.
Right.
And we saw a huge stop in cases, a huge positive effect, and we're not seeing that with COVID. And I don't think we have enough information to even say that we are having that social impact that we want.
You know, you had mentioned that there's a social cost, and I think one of the saddest part of that is what it's done to kids. And it's gotten to the point where I've heard this, personally, where teachers have been after kids and stuff about wearing masks or whatever. And they turn it around on the kids like, you don't want your grandma to die, do you?
Yeah. Yep.
I mean, what the hell? How is that right?
It's not. It's disgusting.
You're completely brainwashing your kid.
Yep.
And not even your kid, someone else's kid.
Yeah.
Did you hear about the? I'm not even going to go into this. Let's talk about this another time. But Louis, I appreciate you coming on.
Yeah,
thanks
for
being.
having me.
Looks like everything went okay. I didn't lose any internet. All my cameras worked this time.
Sweet.
My sound was good, so I appreciate you coming on, and I'll go back and review it. And if you want to, you should be able to see it on live. Cool. But we're going to be on Twitter, Rumble, Facebook, YouTube, and probably a few. Podbean is another one. That's where the audio is going to be.
You going to jump on Getter?
I've been on Getter.
Oh, okay.
I actually deleted the app because it's killing my battery.
Oh yeah, just drain it.
Yep. So I cut it off. I may reinstall it, but I may do it on an iPad or something like that. I have an account on Getter, and then I'm sure that whenever Trump gets his new thing, I'll probably jump on that, see how that goes. I think that's not his, is it?
I'm not sure. I'm so bad with social media that I kind of like look at it and disregard most of it. I mean, I'll post a couple things here and there, but it's not like I'm
Right.
living on it.
And unfortunately, I spend way too much time on all of them.
Oh, I spend too much time on them, and I don't even spend a whole lot of time on it.
Yeah. Well, Louis, man, I appreciate you coming on again. Thanks for letting us hijack some of your Saturday.
Yeah.
And this is a good conversation, and we got to have more of it. Eventually, I'm going to try and have 2 or 3 people on at the same time, and
A little round robin.
see how that goes.
That could be fun.
Pass some stuff on. I was actually kind of hoping one guy would show up today, and he hasn't got here yet. But I'm going to stick around for a little bit, see if he shows up, and maybe run a second one.
Nice. Yeah. I'm going to go get my skate sharpened, and then I'm going to go referee a charity hockey game out in the valley.
Very cool.
Raise some
Very
money
cool.
for Kids Cupboard.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
It's good to see you doing community work like this, and it's something that I think that you get a lot of satisfaction.
Yeah.
Being able to help other people.
I really enjoy being a resource, that if somebody asks for help, that I can be there to try to help them with the specific need.
Right.
Yeah, when I can, as I can. But I'm no expert, but I like to help.
Well, you know what? Your heart's in the right place, and I think that, like I said, you've done well, and you've improved on your testimonies every time you've gone to the assembly.
I try. I definitely feel like my last testimony was probably one of my best.
I agree.
I thought it was. I really, when I wrote it, I was like, man, this is what I've been working towards. I mean, everything in here is factual. It's concise. It's passionate.
Yeah, that's the one thing that I got to kind of work on a little bit. I kind of go in there more as like, I figured that I can't hurt them if I entertain them.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. You know what I mean? We can talk about this at another time too, but I've got a little bit different opinion now of Barbara Jones than what I had to begin with.
Yeah, I'm definitely 10,000 foot view as opposed to a 30,000 foot view, and I need to expand it a little bit more, but that takes more time, more energy.
Well, I tell you what, I'm going to go ahead and shut it down. Thanks for coming on, and
until next time.
Absolutely. Oh, they're going to definitely be a next time. I mean, now that I've got all this equipment and it's working well, and I've got it pretty much dialed in and happy with it, it can only go up from here.
Well, I look forward to watching some of these podcasts.
All right. I appreciate it, man.
Yeah.
Thanks again.
Yeah. Thank you.
And that's it, guys. Keep an eye out for other podcasts. We're going to be doing them as often as we possibly can. I get the camera back on myself here. I can talk to there we go. There's a camera that's on me. But come back and check out Forgotten Freedoms, and we're going to try and do this at least once a week, maybe from different locations. We'll see. I've got some stuff that's pretty portable. So I'm always looking to have a conversation with somebody. If you want to come on the show, let me know, and we can get you on. Other than that, this is Dustin Sherman. I'm signing off. Louis, thank you very much.